My name is Allison Harper. I'm 39 years old. At 5:38 in the morning on a Wednesday in April, I stood outside the surgical admissions desk at St. Catherine's Medical Center with a hospital bracelet around my wrist, a paper bag holding my clothes, and no one from my family beside me. The automatic doors opened and closed behind me, letting in damp spring air from the parking garage. The lobby smelled like floor wax, coffee, hand sanitizer, and the faint metallic chill that hospitals carry before the sun comes up. A television mounted above the waiting area played a morning news show with the sound off. A nurse in blue scrubs walked past holding a clipboard. Somewhere down the hall, a cartwheel squeaked every third rotation. My right hand rested on the folder I had carried for weeks. Inside were my surgical consent forms, pathology reports, insurance letters, appointment notes, and the printed schedule for the partial mastectomy I was about to have, because a biopsy had turned my ordinary February into a vocabulary lesson no woman asks for. Invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 2, hormone receptor positive, treatable. That was the word everyone kept using, treatable. They said it like a comfort. They did not say easy. They did not say small. They did not say you will not be frightened when the anesthesiologist asks, who is waiting for you after surgery, and your mouth goes dry, because the honest answer is nobody who shares your last name. My friend Marrow was parking the car. She had insisted on driving me even though she had 2 children, a husband on night shift, and a mother recovering from hip surgery. She was a friend from work, not blood, which was how I learned early that blood is sometimes the least reliable fluid in a hospital. My parents were not there. My brother was not there. They were at the airport. Not because of an emergency, not because someone else was dying, not because they misunderstood the date. They were there to send my older brother Jason and his wife off on a Caribbean cruise. A 7-night cruise. Balcony cabin. Drink package. Matching luggage tags my mother had printed and laminated. My mother had texted me at 4:12 that morning. Mom, praying for you today, sweetie. We'll call from Miami before the ship boards if the timing works. Be brave. Be brave. As if bravery were a substitute for presence. My father had sent a thumbs-up emoji. Jason sent nothing. The woman at admissions looked up and smiled professionally. Allison Harper? Yes. Do you have someone here with you today? I looked toward the glass doors, just as Mara came rushing in, hair pulled into a messy bun, coat half-buttoned, holding 2 coffees she would not be allowed to bring past pre-op. She does, Mara said, slightly breathless. I'm here. The admissions clerk looked relieved. So did I, not because Mara fixed everything, because there is a certain humiliation in explaining abandonment to strangers before sunrise. The clerk handed me forms. I signed where she pointed. My hand was steady until I reached the line for emergency contact. I stared at the blank space for a second longer than I should have. Mara's hand touched my shoulder. Put me, she said. I wrote her name. Not my mother's, not my father's, not Jason's. Mara Ellis. Friend. The pen made a small scratch against the paper. I remember thinking that some words look smaller than what they mean. Friend. She sat with me in pre-op while the nurse took my blood pressure twice because the first reading was too high. She held my phone when the surgeon came in and drew purple lines on my skin. She helped me laugh when the anesthesiologist asked if I had any loose teeth, and I said, only emotionally. At 6:53, my phone buzzed. A photo from my mother. Jason and his wife, Nicole, standing under the airport departure sign, both smiling, both holding travel mugs, both wearing matching Navy cruise sweatshirts that said, Bon Voyage Crew. Mom, look how excited they are. We are trying to keep the morning cheerful for everyone. For everyone. I turned the phone face down. Mara saw my face and did not ask. At 7:10, they wheeled me towards surgery. The ceiling lights moved above me in long white rectangles. The hallway smelled colder than the waiting room. A nurse tucked the blanket around my shoulders. Someone will update Mara when we're done, she said. I nodded. I did not cry until the anesthesia mask came down, and someone told me to think of a place I felt safe. I could not think of my parents' house. I could not think of my brother, so I thought of Mara's hand on my shoulder and the way she had said, put me, as if being named was not a burden. What they didn't know was that I kept everything after that day. The texts, the airport photo, the surgery schedule. The discharge instructions Mara signed because my mother was still somewhere between terminal gates and boarding announcements. The voicemail my father left that evening saying, "Sounds like it went okay, kiddo," while music and laughter from the cruise send-off lunch played behind him. The email from Jason 3 days later asking if I could not make Mom feel guilty because she had been really torn. I kept all of it. Not because I planned revenge, because cancer teaches you that the body remembers what the mind tries to excuse. 2 years later, when Jason's name appeared on my phone and my mother's trembling voice told me he needed a bone marrow donor, every saved message came back like a room filling with witnesses. And when my family arrived at my apartment with tears, apologies, pressure, and the word sister held out like a bill I had forgotten to pay, I already knew one thing. My marrow was not theirs to claim just because they had run out of other people. This is that story. Before I take you back to the beginning, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from? And what time is it there? I think about the women listening from hospital parking lots, small apartments, break rooms, kitchens, and dark bedrooms, after being told to be strong by people who never planned to stand beside them. If stories about women who were abandoned, underestimated, betrayed, and quietly took their power back mean something to you, leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. But before I tell you what happened when my family came begging for my bone marrow, I need to take you back to the beginning. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in a beige, split-level house with green shutters, a basketball hoop over the garage, and a front door my mother decorated for every holiday except the ones I cared about. We were the kind of family that looked organized from the street. Lawn mowed, cars washed, Christmas lights straight, matching Easter outfits when we were small, birthday banners taped neatly over the fireplace. Inside, everything orbited Jason. Jason was 3 years older than me, tall before everyone else, loud before everyone else, and forgiven before anyone finished explaining what he had done. He was my parents' first child, their son, their born leader, their big personality, their all-American boy, though most of what they called leadership looked like other people rearranging themselves around his appetite. When Jason forgot his homework, my mother drove it to school. When I forgot mine once in 5th grade, she said, "That's how you learn." When Jason broke the neighbor's window with a baseball, my father called it a strong arm and bad luck. When I dented the mailbox learning to drive, he said, "You need to pay attention to what things cost." Jason was not evil as a child. That would make the story easier than it is. He was charming, funny, restless. He could turn a punishment into a joke before my parents reached the end of the sentence. He gave hugs after hurting feelings, and people mistook the hug for repair. I was the careful one. Careful girls and families like mine become useful early. I learned how my mother liked towels folded. I learned to pack my own lunch. I learned which bills made my father tense. I learned to listen at the edges of rooms. I learned that if Jason wanted something, the family called it opportunity. If I wanted something, the family called it timing. My mother, Evelyn Harper, had a soft voice and a talent for making selfishness sound maternal. She loved being needed, but only in certain directions. She loved emergency when it gave her a role. She did not love quiet need, the kind that asked someone to sit in a hard chair for 4 hours without applause. My father, Richard Harper, was a retired high school athletic director who believed effort was visible only when it involved sweat, trophies, or public recognition. He was not cruel in obvious ways. He simply considered my life less urgent because it made less noise. My job, my apartment, my appointments, my fatigue, my bills, my loneliness, these were manageable because I managed them. Jason's life happened to the whole family. Mine happened to me. By the time I was 10, I understood that Jason's soccer tournaments took priority over my spelling bees. His baseball banquets mattered more than my choir concerts. His college visits became family road trips, while I toured Ohio State with a guidance counselor and 2 girls from school because my father had a booster meeting and my mother said, "You're independent enough to enjoy it." Independent, that was the family's favorite word for not showing up. I went to college on scholarships and part-time work. Jason went on my parents' savings, plus loans they later helped him pay because, quote, business majors need room to launch. I became a claims coordinator for a regional insurance company, a job that required patience, accuracy, and the ability to read documents angry people had not read before signing. Jason bounced through sales, logistics, gym management, and eventually landed in medical device distribution through a friend of my father's. He made more money than I did. My parents treated that as proof of wisdom. I rented a small, one-bedroom apartment near the river, with creaky floors, good light, and a kitchen window that faced a brick wall. Jason bought a house with a finished basement and complained constantly about the mortgage. My mother called his house a big responsibility. She called my apartment a good little starter place, even after I had lived there for 6 years. At 32, Jason married Nicole, a dental hygienist with blonde hair, careful nails, and a laugh that turned sharp when she drank wine. My parents adored her because she treated them like honored guests in Jason's life. She sent my mother photos of table settings. She asked my father for advice on grilling. She called me Allie after I told her twice I preferred Allison. Their wedding was 3 days, 2 hotel blocks, and 1 emergency involving a florist who delivered ivory roses instead of white. My mother cried harder over the roses than she would later cry on the morning of my surgery. I was a bridesmaid. I steamed dresses, tracked gift envelopes, found Jason's missing cufflinks, fixed Nicole's veil, and took my place in photos that later appeared on my parents' mantle with me cropped halfway out at the edge. Jason and Nicole wanted children immediately, but they also wanted vacations, renovations, and a lifestyle that required constant celebration. Every birthday became a weekend. Every promotion became a dinner. Every ordinary purchase became content. My parents participated happily, especially when Jason invited them to join. They took family beach trips without inviting me because, as my mother said, we assumed you wouldn't want to be the fifth wheel. They went to Jason's house every Christmas morning to watch him and Nicole open gifts, then came to mine on December 26th with leftovers and stories. They knew my spare key was under the loose brick near my back steps. They did not know the name of my primary care doctor. The cancer began as a lump I almost ignored. That is the truth. It was January. Cold, gray, ordinary. I was getting dressed for work and felt it near the upper outside edge of my left breast. Small. Firm. Not painful. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror with one hand raised and told myself bodies have textures. Hormones make things happen. I was 37, too young for the version of breast cancer my mind had built from pamphlets. But I made an appointment. That decision saved me. My primary care doctor ordered imaging. The mammogram became an ultrasound. The ultrasound became a biopsy. The biopsy became a phone call at 4:20 on a Thursday afternoon while I was sitting in my car outside the office, rain streaking the windshield. "Allison," Dr. Patel said gently, "the pathology shows invasive ductal carcinoma." I remember the windshield wipers moving. I remember a woman in a red coat walking past my car with a grocery bag. I remember looking at my hand on the steering wheel and thinking, absurdly, that I needed to buy dish soap. Cancer did not make the world cinematic. It made it too detailed. I called my mother that night. She answered while watching a cooking show. "Hi, honey. Everything okay?" "No." The word was enough. Her voice changed. "What happened?" I told her. There was a sharp inhale, then silence. Then she cried. For about 90 seconds, I felt like a child whose mother had come running. Then she said, "How bad is it?" "I don't know everything yet." "Do you need surgery?" "Probably." "Oh, Allison." I closed my eyes. "I'm scared." "I know, sweetie." I let that sentence hold me. Then she said, "Have you told Jason?" The room inside me changed. "No, not yet." "He'll be devastated." I looked at the wall of my apartment. "I'm sure." "You should call him before he hears from someone else." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because even my cancer diagnosis became something to manage for Jason's emotional experience. I told him the next day. Jason was kind for 5 minutes. He said, "Damn, Allie, that sucks." "Then you're gonna be fine though, right?" "I hope so." "Mom is freaking out." "I know. You know how she gets." I waited. He continued, "Nicole and I are supposed to go on that cruise in April. Mom and Dad were planning to come see us off in Miami for a couple days before we board, so hopefully your surgery doesn't land around then." I sat on my couch with my pathology report on the coffee table. I don't control the surgical schedule. I know, I'm just saying Mom will be stressed if everything overlaps. Everything. My cancer surgery and his cruise departure. Everything. The surgery was scheduled for April 10th. Jason's cruise left April 10th, the same morning. At first, I thought my parents would cancel Miami. That may sound naive, but even in families where the pattern is clear, major illness can make you hope people will become who you needed them to be all along. My mother called after I told her the date. "Oh, honey," she said, "that's the cruise day." "Yes." There was silence. "We fly to Miami on the 9th. "I know." Jason and Nicole have been looking forward to this for a year. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. "I'm having cancer surgery." Of course. I just mean timing is cruel." Timing was not cruel. Their choice was. For 2 weeks, the decision remained unspoken. My mother called often. She asked about pre-op instructions, but also about whether Jason seemed disappointed that the family mood had changed around his trip. My father sent me articles about staying positive. Jason sent a text with a pink ribbon emoji and then a photo of cruise luggage in their guest room. Mara came with me to my surgical consult. Mara Ellis worked in my department, a woman with curly brown hair, blunt opinions, and the kind of loyalty that arrives with snacks. We had become friends slowly over years of shared lunch breaks, bad coffee, and the mutual understanding that workplace friendships can become family when the actual kind has poor attendance. She sat beside me while the surgeon explained lumpectomy versus mastectomy, sentinel lymph node biopsy, margins, radiation, possible chemotherapy depending on final pathology. She took notes when my brain went foggy. In the elevator afterward, she said, "Your parents are coming, right?" I looked at the numbers above the door. "They haven't confirmed." Mara turned toward me. "Allison." "I know." "Do they understand this is surgery?" "Yes." "Do they understand cancer surgery?" "Yes." She said nothing else. That was one of the things I loved about Mara. She did not rush to fill silence with excuses for people who had earned the discomfort. A week before surgery, I went to my parents' house. The magnolia tree in their front yard was beginning to bloom. Jason's old basketball hoop still hung above the garage, net half torn. My mother had suitcases open in the living room. Cruise outfits lay folded on the couch. My father was printing boarding passes at the kitchen table. I stood in the doorway and looked at the scene. My mother turned. "Oh, Allison, I was going to call you." "About surgery?" Her hands moved to a stack of sundresses. "Yes, we've been talking." My father removed his reading glasses. "Come sit down." I did not sit. My mother took a breath. "We think the best plan is for us to go to Miami as scheduled. Jason gets anxious before big trips, and Nicole's family is already meeting everyone there. We'll be back by the weekend after your surgery, and we can help during recovery." I looked at her. "The surgery is on Wednesday." "I know." "I'll be under anesthesia." "Yes." "I need someone there." She clasped her hands. "Could Mara go? You said she's been helpful." "Mara. My friend with 2 children, and a life my parents considered less obligated than theirs, because I had never been centered enough for them to see obligations around me." I looked at my father. "Dad?" He shifted in his chair. "Your mother's right. Jason booked this long before we knew, and the doctor said it's treatable." Treatable again. The word they used to make absence sound reasonable. My voice stayed quiet. "If the dates were reversed, would you skip Jason's surgery to come to my vacation send-off?" My mother looked wounded. "That is not fair." "It is exact." My father frowned. "Allison, don't make this a competition." "It has always been one," I said. "I just never entered." The room went still. My mother started crying. Not loud, soft, public, familiar. "We are doing the best we can." I looked at the suitcases. "No," I said. "You are doing what you want and hoping I will call it your best." My father stood. "That's enough." I nodded. "Yes." I left. On the way home, I stopped at a gas station and bought a bottle of water, tissues, and a notebook with a blue cover because it was near the register and my hands needed something to hold. In the car, I wrote the date on the first page. April 3rd. Parents confirmed they will skip surgery for Jason's cruise send-off. That notebook became my second witness. The first witness was my body. The symbolic object in this story was a small, pink scarf Mara gave me the night before surgery. Not a bright, cheerful pink. Soft pink, almost blush, made of cotton so it would not irritate my skin after the incision. She said, for when people say warrior and you want to strangle them but can't lift your arm. I laughed for the first time in days. I wore that scarf to the hospital the next morning. My parents sent airport photos. Jason sent nothing. Mara stayed through surgery. She called my mother when I came out, because I asked her to, even though part of me wanted no one updated. My mother cried on the phone from Miami and told Mara to take care of our girl. Mara later said she almost threw her phone into the recovery room sink. My father called that night. Music played in the background, not loud, but there. "Allie, kiddo?" he said. "Sounds like it went okay." My throat hurt from the breathing tube. My chest burned. My left arm felt strange and heavy. I was in Mara's guest room because she refused to let me go home alone. Her youngest child had made a sign that said, "Feel better, Miss Allison," in purple marker and taped it to the dresser. "It went," I whispered. "Good, good. We'll check in tomorrow before they board." I closed my eyes. "Okay." He did not ask if I was scared. He did not ask if I needed anything. He did not ask what the surgeon said. 3 days later, Jason emailed me. Subject line, Mom. "Allie, I know you're going through a lot, but please don't make Mom feel guilty. She was really torn about Miami and cried half the flight. This cruise has been planned forever, and honestly, we all needed something positive. Hope recovery is going well." I read the email twice. Then I printed it. Mara found me at her kitchen table, holding the paper. She looked at it, then at me. "Folder?" she asked. I nodded. She brought me a manila folder from her office drawer. I labeled it Family. Radiation started 6 weeks later. By then, my parents had come over twice. The first visit lasted 45 minutes, because my mother said hospitals made her anxious even when we were in my apartment. The second visit involved a casserole and a long story about how Jason got sunburned on the cruise. My father fixed a loose cabinet hinge, which was his way of saying sorry without risking the word. Jason never visited. He texted once, "You good?" I replied, "Recovering." He sent a thumbs up. Treatment changed me. Not in the inspirational way people like to package for fundraisers. It made me tired, angry, grateful, petty, tender, afraid, and bored. Radiation burns do not care about motivational quotes. Follow-up scans do not care whether your family is comfortable. Hair in the shower, even if not from chemo but stress and medication, still feels personal. Every ache becomes suspicious. Every well-meaning person saying "you got this" makes you wonder what happens if you do not. Mara drove me to radiation on Fridays. My neighbor, Mrs. Patel, brought soup. My coworker, Daniel, mowed the tiny patch of grass outside my apartment building. A woman from my support group named Helen sat with me after one appointment when I cried in the parking lot, because the bell in the radiation center felt too cheerful for what finishing treatment actually meant. My family posted about me once. My mother shared a pink ribbon graphic and wrote, "So proud of our brave daughter Allison. Family is everything." I stared at that post for a long time. Family is everything. I did not comment. I took a screenshot. 2 years passed. Slowly, then quickly. I returned to work. I went to follow-ups. I learned to live with the scar. I changed apartments, moving into a slightly larger one with better light, and a balcony where I grew basil badly. I went to therapy. I stopped attending every family gathering. Not dramatically. I simply said no more often. My parents noticed. My mother called it distance. I called it healing with boundaries. Jason and Nicole had a daughter, Ava, 18 months after my surgery. She was beautiful, round-cheeked, and innocent of the machinery around her. My parents became grandparents with the full force they had once directed toward Jason's cruise. Photos, visits, nursery gifts, personalized blankets. I sent a baby gift, a board book and a soft rabbit. Nicole texted thank you. Jason did not. When Ava turned 1, my mother asked if I could help set up the party. I said no. She paused. "You used to be so good at this kind of thing." "I know. Is this still about the surgery?" I looked out at my balcony, where the basil had finally given up. "Yes," I said. She sighed. Allison, we apologized. You said the timing was unfortunate. That was an apology. No, I said. That was a weather report. She cried. I let the silence hold. Then came Jason's diagnosis. It started with bruises, fatigue, and fevers. At first, he blamed work, then a virus, then fatherhood. When blood work came back abnormal, everything moved fast. Hematology, bone marrow biopsy, acute leukemia. My mother called me at 6:32 on a Tuesday evening. I was chopping vegetables for soup. Allison, she said, and I knew before she finished my name that something had happened. What is it? It's Jason. For one strange second, I was back in my car hearing the word carcinoma. Cancer does not become less frightening because someone else once abandoned you during yours. What happened? She told me. Her voice broke on leukemia. I sat down at the kitchen table with the knife still in my hand. Is he at St. Catherine's? Yes. What does he need? They're starting treatment. They said maybe transplant depending. They need family tested, bone marrow, stem cells. I don't understand all of it. I closed my eyes. There it was. The future arriving with a hospital bracelet in its hand. My mother continued. They said siblings are important. You might be his best chance. I opened my eyes. Outside, rain tapped against the balcony railing. I'm sorry he's sick, I said. She sobbed. Can you come tonight? I looked at the cutting board. The carrots, the onion, the ordinary dinner now impossible. No. Silence. What? I can't come tonight. Allison, your brother has leukemia. I heard you. He needs us. I let that sentence stand for a moment. Then I said, I needed you. She made a sound like I had slapped her. This is not the time. I know. Then why would you say that? Because you asked me to come running into the same hospital where I woke up without you. She cried harder. I did not feel satisfaction. That surprised me. For years, I had wondered what I would feel if my family needed me the way I had needed them. I imagined anger, vindication, the clean pleasure of saying no, but reality was not clean. Jason was sick. My parents were terrified. A child might lose her father. My own body remembered hospital light. I said, I will speak with my oncologist and a transplant coordinator. I will not make decisions through family pressure. Allison, that is my answer tonight. I hung up before she could turn fear into command. Then I called Mara. She answered, Hey, Jason has leukemia. Oh, Allison. They need siblings tested. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the right question. What do you want? I don't know. Okay, what do you need before you decide? I looked at the pink scarf hanging on a hook near my door. I had kept it. Washed soft, worn thin at the edges. Information, I said. Then get information first. That became the rule. Information before emotion. The next morning, I called my oncologist, Dr. Rao. He knew my history, my surgery, my radiation, my current medications, and the parts of my body that had already endured enough. He listened carefully. Being a potential donor after cancer treatment is not automatically impossible, he said, but it must be evaluated carefully. You need a transplant team to assess eligibility, risk, and whether peripheral stem cell donation or marrow donation would be considered. No promises, no family assumptions. Would it be dangerous? Potentially more complicated for you than for someone without your history. We do not guess, we evaluate. Can my family know anything? Only what you choose to share. That sentence mattered. Only what you choose to share. I called the transplant coordinator at St. Catherine's, a woman named Marisol Vega. She was calm, precise, and used to desperate families. Ms. Harper, she said, testing is voluntary. Donation is voluntary. Matching does not obligate donation. We will speak with you privately. We do not pressure donors, and we do not allow families to consent for them. I nearly cried from the relief of hearing a medical professional say what my family would not. The first family ambush happened that Friday. I came home from work and found my parents in my apartment building lobby. My father looked older than he had 2 weeks before. My mother held a tissue twisted in both hands. Jason's wife, Nicole, stood beside them with swollen eyes and her phone clutched to her chest. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs. How did you get in? My mother said, Mrs. Patel let us wait, she knows us. Mrs. Patel did not know the history. She knew my parents' Christmas cards. Nicole stepped forward. Allison, I'm sorry to show up like this. She sounded genuinely ashamed. My father said we need to talk. I looked at them. In the courtyard. My mother blinked. Not upstairs? No. It was cold outside. Early evening. The courtyard had 2 metal benches, a leafless tree, and planters filled with dead winter soil. We sat nowhere. Standing felt more honest. My father began. Jason's doctors say siblings are the best shot. I've spoken with the coordinator. My mother looked relieved. So you'll do it? I said I spoke with her. Nicole wiped her eyes. They said testing first. We just need you to test. I am considering testing after my oncologist reviews donor eligibility. My father frowned. Allison, this is not about old grudges. There it was. Old grudges. The language people use when they want consequences to expire before accountability begins. I looked at him. My medical history is not a grudge. He looked away. My mother stepped closer. He is your brother. I know. He could die. I know. Her voice broke. Please don't punish him for our mistake. I was quiet. That sentence was the closest she had come to naming it. Mistake. Still too small, but closer. Nicole spoke then. I didn't know how bad it was when they skipped your surgery. I looked at her. You were on the cruise. She nodded, tears falling. I know. I knew it was wrong, but I told myself your parents would handle it after. Jason said you didn't want to fuss. Of course he did. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, I had cancer surgery. I wanted my parents. Nicole closed her eyes. I'm sorry. My father rubbed his hands together. Allison, we can apologize later. Right now? No. His head snapped up. No. No. You do not get to postpone accountability again because Jason's emergency is louder than mine was. My mother whispered, What do you want from us? It was not the right tone. It was still partly accusation. But it was a question. I took one breath. I want a written apology from each of you acknowledging that you skipped my cancer surgery for Jason's cruise send-off, that you minimized it afterward, and that you allowed me to recover without family support. I want Jason to acknowledge the email he sent telling me not to make Mom feel guilty. I want all medical communication about testing to go through the transplant coordinator, not family. I want no one contacting my doctor, my job, or my friends. And I want everyone to understand that testing does not guarantee donation. The courtyard was silent. My father stared at me like I had spoken another language. My mother said, You want paperwork? Yes. Nicole nodded slowly. That seems fair. My mother looked at her. Nicole. Nicole's voice trembled. No, Evelyn, it does. For the first time, I saw Nicole not as Jason's wife, not as the woman from the cruise photos, but as a terrified mother who understood that family pressure had already harmed one woman and might harm another. My father said, Jason is in the hospital. You expect him to write you a letter? I expect him to tell the truth in whatever form he can before anyone asks my body for anything. My mother flinched at the word body. Good. The second ambush came by phone from Jason. He called from the hospital 2 days later. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. His voice was weaker than I remembered. Allie? Allison. A pause. Allison? The correction mattered. How are you? I asked. Terrible. I'm sorry. He laughed once, dry and humorless. Yeah, me too. Silence sat between us, filled with hospital beeps on his end. Mom said you want letters. I want acknowledgement. I had leukemia symptoms for weeks and didn't know. Now everyone is acting like I'm already gone. I closed my eyes. That sounds terrifying. It is. I know. He was quiet. Then he said, because of your thing. My thing. My cancer had been downgraded to a vague object, even in the room where he needed my marrow. Cancer? I said. He exhaled. Cancer. Sorry. I waited. He continued. I was an ass about it. Yes. I didn't think of it as, I don't know, real surgery. I opened my eyes. What did you think it was? I don't know. You always handle things. There it was again. The family creed. Allison handles things, therefore Allison does not need holding. I handled it because I had to. I know that now. Do you? He was silent. Then he said, I sent that email because Mom was crying on the cruise, and Nicole said the whole trip felt weird, and I wanted it to stop feeling like my fault. It was your choice to go. I know. You did not ask if I was okay. I know. You asked me to manage Mom's guilt while I was recovering from surgery. His breathing changed. I know. The third I know sounded different. Less defensive. More broken. I'm sorry, he said. I looked at the pink scarf on the chair beside me. Thank you. Will you test? There it was. The apology and the need standing too close together. I am going through the medical evaluation process. That is all I'm promising. Okay. He sounded disappointed, but he did not argue. That mattered. The letters came over the next week. My mother's was handwritten on floral stationery, 3 pages long, with too many sentences about fear and not enough about choice, until the final paragraph. I chose Jason's cruise send-off over being present for your cancer surgery. I told myself it was because the trip had been planned and your doctor sounded optimistic, but the truth is that I expected you to manage pain more quietly than your brother manages disappointment. I am sorry. I failed you as your mother. I read that paragraph 5 times. Then I folded the letter and placed it in the family folder. My father's was shorter. Allison, I was wrong. I minimized your surgery because I did not know how to face it, and because Jason has always been easier for me to show up for. That is not an excuse. I should have been there. I am sorry. Jason's came by email. Subject line, what I should have said 2 years ago. Allison, I'm sorry I didn't show up. I'm sorry I let Mom and Dad choose me, and then made you responsible for how guilty that made everyone feel. I'm sorry I called your cancer surgery your thing, and acted like because you were strong you didn't need us. I don't know if I deserve your help. I'm scared to die. I'm scared Ava won't remember me. But I know I don't have the right to demand anything from you. I printed it. Then I cried. Not because all was forgiven. Because accountability, when it finally arrives, often brings grief with it. Grief for what could have been easier if people had told the truth when it first mattered. The testing process was private. I insisted on that. Marisol scheduled the blood draw at a donor center across town, not at the hospital where Jason's family could hover. Mara drove me because I asked her, and because some roles are earned over time. I wore the pink scarf even though it was warm outside. At the donor center, the nurse explained the process. HLA typing, matching markers, possible next steps, medical clearance, donor rights, risks, no guarantee, no obligation. I signed forms after reading every line. Mara sat in the waiting area with a book. She did not open. When the nurse drew my blood, I watched the tube fill and thought about how strange it is that family can fail at presence and still share biology deep enough to matter in a lab. The results took 9 days. During those 9 days, my family behaved better than they ever had. Not perfectly, better. My mother texted once a day and asked, "How are you feeling?" Not any news? Not Jason had a rough night? Just me, I answered briefly. My father left soup at my door without knocking. Nicole sent photos of Ava drawing with crayons in the hospital family room, then wrote, "No pressure to respond. Just wanted you to see she smiled today." Jason sent no requests. That silence was perhaps the first respectful thing he had ever given me without needing applause. The match call came on a Thursday afternoon. Marisol's voice was calm. "Allison, you are a full sibling match." I sat down on the edge of my bed. Full match. The phrase entered my body like weather. What happens now? Only if you wish to proceed, we would complete a full medical evaluation. Given your cancer history, your oncologist and our donor physicians must determine whether donation is safe and appropriate. You may decline at any point. I closed my eyes. Would they tell Jason I matched? Not without your consent. I opened them. That mattered more than she knew. For once, information about my body belonged to me first. I asked for 48 hours before anyone was told. Then I called Mara, then Dr. Rao, then my therapist. Then, finally, I sat alone at my kitchen table with the pink scarf folded beside me and asked myself the question no one else had the right to answer. What can I live with? Not what will make them love me, not what will prove I am better, not what will punish them. What can I live with? I thought about the surgery morning, the airport photo, the discharge papers, the radiation burns, the loneliness, the letters, Jason's daughter, my body, my boundaries, the truth that donation would be an act of generosity, not obligation, and generosity offered from self-erasure becomes another wound. I decided I would continue evaluation, not because they deserved it, because I could not let their failure turn me into someone who measured life the way they had measured mine. But I also decided something else. If I donated, it would be on my terms, through the medical team only, with no family performance, no public sainthood, no expectation of emotional reunion, and no rewriting of what happened before. When I told my family I did it in a conference room at St. Catherine's with Marrow present, not at my apartment, not at my parents' house, not somewhere they could turn need into pressure. My parents sat on one side of the table. Nicole sat beside them, twisting her wedding ring. Jason joined by video from his hospital room, pale, thinner, wearing a knit cap. Mara sat beside me because I asked her to. Marisol began by explaining donor privacy and boundaries. Allison has agreed to share certain information today, she said. She remains in control of her donor decision. No one here is to pressure her. My mother nodded quickly. My father looked at the table. Jason watched from the screen. I said, I am a full match. Nicole covered her mouth. My mother started crying. Jason closed his eyes. I lifted one hand. I am not finished. The room stilled. I am agreeing to continue medical evaluation. If the doctors clear me, and if I decide to proceed, I will donate through the transplant team. But I need this understood. My decision is not proof that what happened 2 years ago was acceptable. It does not erase the surgery morning. It does not make my family's absence smaller. It does not mean my body is available because Jason is sick. Jason opened his eyes. I understand. I looked at him through the screen. Do you? He nodded slowly. I think so. No, I'm trying to. That was more honest. My mother whispered, we are so grateful. I am not asking for gratitude yet. I am asking for boundaries. My father said, what boundaries? No social media. No calling me a hero. No family updates about my testing unless I approve them. No surprise visits. No asking Mara for information. No using Ava to pressure me. No telling extended family I matched until the transplant team says it is appropriate. And no one refers to this as me saving Jason after all we've been through, as if this is a nice ending. My mother looked down. Nicole nodded. I agree. Jason said, me too. My father took longer. Then he said, yes. That conference room was the public payoff. Not because anyone shouted. Because for once, my family had to sit in a medical building and hear that my body came with consent. The evaluation cleared me after multiple consultations. There were risks, discomfort, injections, fatigue, and the emotional weight of becoming part of Jason's treatment in a way that felt both intimate and distant. The team chose peripheral blood stem cell donation rather than surgical marrow harvest, based on his protocol and my evaluation. I had injections for several days to move stem cells into my bloodstream. My bones ached. My head hurt. I was tired in a deep, buzzing way. Mara came to the donation appointment. My parents were not invited. Nicole sent one message the night before. Thank you is not enough, and I know you said no gratitude speeches. So I'll just say we will respect every boundary. Ava drew you a flower. I'll mail it when you say it's okay. I answered. After the procedure, Jason sent, I'm scared. I'm sorry. Thank you for continuing. I wrote back, I'm scared too. That was the most honest conversation we had ever had. Donation day was long. I sat in a recliner connected to a machine that separated what Jason needed from my blood and returned the rest. The room was bright and quiet. Nurses moved with practiced calm. Mara sat beside me reading terrible celebrity gossip aloud, because she said medical machines needed nonsense to balance them. At one point, I looked at the tubing and thought about the hospital hallway 2 years earlier. The ceiling lights, the mask, the absence. Then I looked at Marrow. Presence. That was the word. Not perfect love. Not blood. Presence. Jason received the transplant 2 days later. The next months were uncertain. Transplants are not magic. There were infections, fear, waiting, numbers, complications, cautious hope. I did not become the center of the family. I refused that role. I asked for updates through Nicole once a week. I visited Jason once when he was stable enough. He cried when I entered the room. I did not. He was thin, pale, and smaller than I had ever seen him. Tubes, monitors, blankets. No charm, no performance. Just my brother, sick enough to have met the edge of himself. "Allison," he said. I sat in the chair near the bed. "How are you?" "Alive because of you, maybe. Because of a lot of people." He nodded. "I know." We sat quietly. Then he said, "I don't know how to be your brother now." I looked at him. "Start by not making that my job." He absorbed that. Then he nodded. "Okay." A year later, Jason is in remission. Cautious word. Beautiful word. Not guaranteed. Still beautiful. Our family is not healed in the way people like to imagine after a medical crisis. We are not suddenly close. We do not have weekly dinners where everyone cries and holds hands. My parents still struggle not to center Jason. My mother still starts sentences with, "after everything he's been through," and sometimes catches herself when I look at her. My father shows up more now, but awkwardly, as if learning presence at 70 is like learning a new language with stiff hands. Jason is different. Illness did not make him saintly. It made him aware. Some days that awareness holds. Some days old habits return. The difference is that now, when he slips into assuming I will manage everyone's feelings, I say no, and he stops. That is growth. Small, but real. Mara is still my emergency contact. That did not change. I told my mother once, gently but clearly, that the emergency contact line is not a lifetime achievement award. It belongs to the person most likely to answer correctly when called. She cried. I let her. Then she said, "I understand." I believe she is beginning to. The pink scarf hangs on a hook by my bedroom door. I wore it to the donor center. I wore it to my last oncology follow-up. I wear it sometimes when the weather turns cold and my scar aches in a way no scan explains. It is no longer just the scar from surgery. It is the thing that stayed. The family folder is still in my desk. I do not open it often. The airport photo is there. The surgery schedule. Jason's email. My parents' letters. The donor consent forms. The match confirmation. The boundary list from the conference room. Some people would call that bitter. I call it a map. A map of where I was abandoned. A map of where I refused to disappear. A map of the road between no one came and I still chose who I wanted to be. People think revenge would have been refusing to test. People think revenge would have been saying, "You skipped my surgery, so I'll skip yours." I understand why. There is a version of me, smaller and hurt and shaking in a pre-op bed, who might have wanted that sentence to exist somewhere. But the revenge I chose was better for my life. I made them write the truth. I made them ask instead of assume. I made them sit with boundaries in a hospital conference room. I made the medical team treat my body as mine before my family could treat it as Jason's chance. And then, only then, I chose from freedom instead of guilt. That is the part that saved me, not the donation, the freedom. Because giving something freely is not the same as being drained. My parents skipped my cancer surgery for my brother's cruise send-off. That will always be true. My brother asked me not to make our mother feel guilty while I was recovering. That will always be true too. But another truth exists now. When the family came begging, I did not become cruel, I became clear. I did not let them rewrite abandonment as unfortunate timing. I did not let them turn biology into a command. I did not let them use my niece, my mother's tears, or my father's fear to take what they had not earned. I stood between my body and their need. Then I opened the door on my terms. So tell me, if the people who abandoned you in your worst medical hour came back needing your body to save the person they chose over you, would you say no? Would you say yes? Or would you make them face the truth before you decided? Thank you for staying with me through this story. Some betrayals happen under hospital lights, in airport photos, in texts that say, "Be brave," when what you needed was someone in the chair beside you. If you have ever been expected to give endlessly to people who were absent when you needed them, I hope Allison's story reminded you that compassion without boundaries becomes another form of injury. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and the kind of strength that does not come from cruelty, but from finally knowing your body, your forgiveness, and your peace belong to you.